Yes.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? So, welcome to our webinar brought to you by Editage. So, please feel free to say hello in the chat on the right side of the screen, and also type your questions there. So, I'm going to say greetings from Moscow, Russia. So, yeah, please say hello over there. It's kind of fun to watch the chats while I'm giving the presentation. There's a little Q&A tab, so you can also click on that. And if you think of any questions during the webinar, can flag them. And I promise to leave some time for Q&A at the end. So yeah, without any further ado, I think letting everyone join our session. I'll share our screen. Yeah, I think today's session is going to be very useful. I'm going to give you a tutorial on citations, how to properly cite items, how to avoid plagiarism. These are all very useful topics. But then, I'll introduce several reference managers. We're not particularly endorsing Endnote, but it's just, it's one of the premium reference managers. But it's basically all the reference managers work in this fashion. So if you have a go-to one that you're already using, a lot of the features here are probably also available, but you just might be limited to the number of references you can add to your library. So without any further ado, I'm going to turn on my pointer so you can follow me. So again, my name is Dr. Jacob Wickham. I'm an academic trader with Editage. I've been the senior managing editor for Integrative Zoology. This is a Wiley journal, and ranked in the top 5% of all zoology journals worldwide. And my full-time job, I'm a senior researcher at the Russian Academy of Sciences in Moscow. And here's just a quick introduction to Editage. For over 20 years, Editage has been supporting researchers like you in their academic journeys. And today, Editage offers a comprehensive suite of research solutions from expert services. We have a lot of really good academic trainers and support staff, and also some cutting AI, artificial intelligence projects, all designed to meet the needs of researchers at every step of their academic journey. So Editage Plus, this is a subscription service that comes with a whole suite of AI tools and products. And then there's a free online repository. This is Editage Insights. You just go to editageinsights.com, and there's a lot of great material, researchers and blogs. And if I have questions about writing scientific papers, I often go on Editage Insights. There's a lot of great information there. And Editage is part of Cactus Communications, and they have partnerships with over 500 universities, including King Saud University. So thanks for joining us from King Saud. And also partnerships with lots of journals and publishers, including Wiley, the publisher of Integrative Zoology, and many scientific societies, including Science, recommends Editage for editing your papers. So we're one of the best. So here's an agenda. I'll just go over some definitions about citations, some basic information, how to find citations, and actually how to build your reference library. There's a lot of shortcuts you can use because it's very time consuming if you have a giant folder of PDFs, either printed or on your computer. To put those in your reference manager manually, it'd be very time consuming. So I'll teach you how to find and enter your citations. I'll give you a nice quick note on plagiarism and paraphrasing. This is always useful information. What constitutes plagiarism? A lot of it is accidental or just you're improperly citing your work. So that can be avoided just by having good citations in your writing. I'll go into like what data goes into a reference and the different citation styles. There's actually over 6,000 of them. And then the reference manager tools, of which Endnote is one of them. And I'll give you a nice crash course about Endnote. So just to start with some important definitions, citation is basically any mention of an original source, and this can be a journal article or a book, or even a website, and it's basically the main text of a document. And then your reference, this is your list at the end of your paper. This is your complete list of your citations that appear at the end of the document. Before you submit a paper, you should make sure all your in-text citations are actually included in the reference, and that you have nothing missing in your references. Like if you have an extra reference there, but you forgot to cite it in the paper, you also want to do that check. Uh, So, here's a paragraph about a medical journal, and this follows the Vancouver style, which is the numbered format, which is one of the most common formats for citing papers in chemistry and biological sciences and medical sciences. But they also use the Harvard Manchester style as well. This is like the author year style. These references appear in the order of which they are cited. So it's just a coincidence that they're alphabetized. So they'll appear in the order of that you reference them. And then if you cite it again later in the paper, it still uses the original number. So it helps keep track of citations. So more definitions. One is a bibliography. This is a list of additional materials not mentioned in the text, but supplementary to it. Sometimes supplementary materials, they'll have their separate references section. And then plagiarism, this is a word you should all know. This is passing off someone else's work as your own without obtaining permission or acknowledging their contribution. Usually, this can be avoided by proper citations and paraphrasing. So, why should you cite papers? Well, this is very important. A lot of journals' impact factors are based on their citations. But in addition to that, citations show adherence to academic writing standards. So we are all on the same page. It shows respect for and acknowledges other scholars' work. And this also, at the same time, can avoid plagiarism. And it also can help provide evidence to back your claims. So in your introduction section, you can set up your scientific argument. You can mention the gaps of knowledge in your research. Then discussion section, when you compare and contrast your results with results of other papers, here you can help back up your own claims and the conclusions that you make in your papers. It's also good to cite either controversial data or um, you know if there's like a controversy in your field, it's good to cite papers that both support and refute arguments. So that it gives a nice balanced um, argument and counter arguments of your studies. It also provides evidence you've read and considered all the relevant literature. Therefore, it gives credibility to your work, and it also helps others trace the source of your work. Where did you get your ideas from? What ideas are you expanding on that have been published before? So, and of course, this goes without saying, it facilitates a literature survey. So, the introduction section of every paper is like a miniature literature survey. So, what should you cite? Quotes by other people can be direct or interpreted. Original research, also some books, even websites can be cited. Statistics from another source, for example, populations or results of surveys. You can cite data as well, or tables and figures or diagrams created by others. Also, controversial facts, opinions, and dates from other sources. And also data if you're doing a meta-analysis. Um, Even if you're writing a review paper, if you are getting source data for doing a meta-analysis of lots of other papers, make sure you cite all those. What do you not need to cite? You don't need to cite your own observations or experimental results or your own experiences or your own thoughts, comments, or conclusions. Actually, I made some really good conclusions in my doctoral dissertation and my PhD supervisor said, "You should cite this." I'm like, "No, I don't need to. It's my own idea." So yeah, those don't need to be cited. So your own evaluation or analysis does not need to be cited. And also common knowledge or folklore does not need to be cited. So where can you find references? I know everyone has different strategy for doing their literature searches, and the some of the premium services like Scopus and Web of Science. They're good ones. If you can get a subscription at your local library, I recommend using that. If you don't have one of these premium services, PubMed is a good one. It's for free. SciFinder is really good for chemistry and pharmaceutical papers. But basically, any of these directories can help you find articles with their abstracting and indexing services. So I'll go to the free one. So PubMed, this is a free search engine used to browse articles, mostly in the life sciences and biomedical topics. And it's also convenient. Like even if you have the reference or the PDF already on your computer, uh, and you don't want to type it into your reference manager, you can just find it on PubMed, and then you can click on, you can send the reference, and you can get the file and download the file, and then put it into your reference manager. So that's a very useful part. A good example of finding the literature. You can download the paper maybe if you have a subscription to that journal, or your library has a subscription to that journal. And then you can actually get the file with all the data. So how do you find references? Here's some useful tools. I'm sure like this works on Google as well. You can also use in Scopus, Web of Science, or PubMed. So if you use the word "and," the results will include both searched items. If you include "not," it'll exclude terms placed after it. The dollar sign gets results in British and American English, like color and behavior. So there's some words that have different spellings. The star, this will give you results, include the common stem word before you put this asterisk. Um, you can use or. This will include results from at least one of the multiple terms that you're searching for. And then if you put it in quotations, results will exclude, will include the exact phrase between the quotes. So these are just some extra tips on doing your searches, because often you'll get thousands of references, and you want to be able to narrow down the references for your libraries. So be careful about what and how you cite. Literature reviews, these are a great source of knowledge, uh, but it's best to try and find the original research article and rightfully give credit to the authors who actually did all the work. And it's still okay to cite the literature review in general, but if you're citing a specific study, just try to go and find it. So keep it current. If you submit a paper that hasn't cited any papers in the last 5 years, it'll be a red flag for the editors. So make sure you have the most up-to-date sources, including early view and accepted articles as well. Um, these are published papers that have not been assigned to a journal issue yet. So you might want to cite those as well. They'll have a DOI number. Um, but if they do come out in an issue right before you publish your paper, you should go and double check to see if you can include the volume and page numbers. A lot of open access journals, they don't have volumes and page numbers. They'll just have article numbers. So, just make sure everything's up to date before you publish. Don't cite Wikipedia. This can change over time. And it's no one is really regulating that content. And it's becoming increasingly common to cite data. There's a website, Force 11, which provides guidance on citing data properly. So, just a quick note on plagiarism. This just occurs usually, um, when you don't give credit to previous work done in your field and present the earlier work. Well, it gives a mistaken impression that you're presenting earlier work as your own. Or if you do not credit techniques used for conducting research to the people who developed them. So in methodologies, it's important to cite like methods papers. Or if you pass off opinions and ideas as their own, that's a big no-no. Uh, and sometimes I've seen authors, they will include their own previously published work without actually citing themselves. This is called self-plagiarism. So you should cite yourself. I know it's bad if you cite yourself too much, but you should cite earlier articles. You can avoid plagiarism, like for example, if you want to reproduce a table or figure, you can do this for any article. You just go to the Copyright Clearinghouse, and it's usually free of charge. So all you need to do is go to the original source and click on Request Permissions. This is useful if you're writing a journal article or a review paper, or you or if you want to. It's important to recreate tables and figures that already been published. It's still okay to do it, and I'll show you some examples of this. So here's about figures. You cite or you seek permission. Which should you do? So if you've designed an original figure based on materials available elsewhere, the action here is just to cite the source. You don't need to ask permission. If you're using the original figure or just modifying it, you can check the copyright information on the journal's page. And if the copyrights are with the publisher, it's best to write the publisher seeking permission. Actually, you can just do this online. Um, and it would be also polite to email the author, but this is not always necessary. But if the copyrights are with the author, you can write to the author seeking permission. And it's very easy. So we've had some review papers that we published in Integrative Zoology. This is the journal I edit. And if you access any of the articles, and this is true with any publisher, you should be able to click on the abstract, full text, PDF, reference section, and there's usually a request permissions button. You can click on that and then fill in the form for publishers or copyright clearinghouse, and then it gives you a permission number, and you're all set. You're good to go. So yeah, avoid plagiarism. If it's detected, it can have serious consequences on your academic career. And the most extreme form of it is just passing off someone else's work as your own without their permission or acknowledging their contribution. So just get around this so you can just cite properly. And if it's detected post publication, publisher may retract your article using this is the Committee on Publication Ethics, COPE. So there's different forms of plagiarism. There's direct word for word transcription. So that's direct plagiarism. There's self plagiarism. This is unacknowledged reuse of your own work. So better to self cite. There's mosaic plagiarism, unacknowledged use of poorly paraphrased content. So make sure when you're paraphrasing, you do a good job and you extensively rewrite and paraphrase the work. And then there's accidental plagiarism. This is just unintentional use of content without citing sources or misquoting them. Journals have very sophisticated methods to detect plagiarism, and I think that's too strong of a word. I like to use the word text overlap and similarity levels. So text overlap of up to 10%, even 15% for the top journals are generally considered acceptable by most publishers. And then a crude way to check for plagiarism is just to do a Google search. Also, like Turnitin is good as well. But most journals use I authenticate and cross-reference, and these are very sophisticated. I would actually say sometimes they are too sensitive, but to get around them, you have to paraphrase properly, in addition to citing properly. So there's many reasons for plagiarism. Maybe the author doesn't consider it necessary to acknowledge the original author of a well-known fact, considering it common scientific knowledge. Junior authors from certain cultures may believe that it's not right to alter words used by a senior researcher who is an authority in their field. So if you do this, actually, you should give an exact quote and then cite that author. Also, non-native English speakers have difficulties paraphrasing another author's words. That's another reason. And highly technical descriptions can also be very difficult to paraphrase. So, tips to avoid it: cite. If you have to use exact quotes, put quotation marks in your paper and insert a citation. When you paraphrase or summarize, rewrite in your own words and try to retain the original meaning. And even if you're using well-known techniques, it's best to cite the original author. You can always use editage as well to help polish your language if you're not confident about your writing, or you just want to have it in the best shape possible before you submit. And if you're unable to paraphrase another author's work, then use the direct quotations. You can reproduce it verbatim and put in the citation. So to maintain originality and literature surveys, while it's okay to survey previously published work, it's not okay to paraphrase the same with extensive similarity. So try to alter the text. Um, that's where most of the plagiarism occurs. It occurs in the literature section, literature review section of any manuscript or thesis. So try to understand the context of the work carefully, take good notes, and then express it to your target audience in your own language without forgetting to cite the original source. And this way, you'll almost never be accused of plagiarism, at least for the literature review section. So, word of caution: the above statement is valid only for literature reviews. You should never, ever use someone else's original results and try to pass them off as your own. So these are all the information that goes into a reference. I think everybody should already know that. And the author's title, publisher, the year and date, the volume, the page numbers, or if it's an open access article, it could be the article number now if they don't have an imprint version. So all that information um, goes into a reference. Also, there's a reference. Some references have websites, so you want to cite the URL, the web address, and also keep track of the date you accessed the online item. It's often handy to know, even if your referencing style doesn't require it. And usually, the publishers will put in links to all your citations in the reference section with DOI numbers. So you probably don't need to add DOI numbers to your reference section. There's a lot of different styles for citations. The style actually dictates what information goes into a citation and how it is ordered and formatted. And it's usually each area of research. If you're doing like a thesis or dissertation, that dictates the citation style, or the journal will dictate the citation style. So when you're writing an article, you should refer to the guidelines, the author guidelines, to understand which style is actually followed by the journal that you're submitting to. Uh, these are some basic styles for different subjects. The humanities uses the Chicago Manual of Style. Not, um, sorry about that. It's the Chicago author date style. So this is very similar to the Harvard style as well. That also is the author date style. Social sciences, the American Psychological Association, so APA, has their own style, and also the Harvard style is there too. That's all caps. Harvard Manchester is lowercase authors, and then Vancouver style is the numbered format. And then a lot of the sciences, American Chemical Society, this also follows the Vancouver style, that numbered format. And then the Institute of Electrical Engineering, Electrical and Electronics Engineers, have their own style. So I already showed you this on our opening slide. This is the numerical style, also called the Vancouver style, the American Chemical Society. You can either be a superscript or parentheses or brackets, but in any case, you cite according to the appearance in the paper, and then it organizes in the references section without alphabetizing the references. So basically, the same number is repeated, the same as the first mention. This prevents duplicate additions. And then the other style is the Harvard Manchester style. This is like the main style. And this is like the last name, surname, and then the year. So one advice to co-authors is to talk about authorship credit issues at the beginning of their collaborations. So that's always a good um, uh, food for thought for every researcher. So this reference list will be alphabetized at the end of your paper. Um, this is usually easier to do if you don't have a reference manager, but if you're using the Vancouver style, if you forget a citation, then you have to, and you add it into the paper, you got to change the numbering format in the entire article. So you almost have to have a reference managing tool to overcome that problem. Whereas the Harvard Manchester or Harvard styles, the author year format, uh, very easy to add citations because you just add it and then you just put in the author's name alphabetically. So how to get the styles if you don't have it? Harvard Manchester style, this has the in-text citations. Here's a couple examples. One is in the active voice. Hollinson and Palmer are in agreement about the importance of service-led marketing. And then the passive voice here, service-led marketing should form an important part of an organization's overall marketing strategy. And then you just put the citations at the end. Both of these will be picked up by Endnote, and you know, the references will be added to your reference section. Note chronological order. You have the earliest date first. Um, this is before like the order of the years, so you just have the earliest references first. And if you have the same year, then you revert to alphabetical order. So this is not included in the with EndNote. You have to download it as an additional reference. So and here's just a quick um, description of the differences between endnotes and footnotes. Endnotes appear at the end of the document, whereas footnotes appear at the bottom of each page, which you see these in books often. And these are both numbered consecutively throughout the manuscript. Endnotes are commonly used for a reference section, whereas footnotes are used to insert small notes at the bottom of your pages or a table. Footnotes often appear in tables. For style, manuscript authors need to refer to the journal style guidelines for their style for both footnotes and endnotes. Again, here's how to add citations. You can use it in the main text. So you can use active voice here, or you can have passive voice. And usually the passive voice you'll put at the end of a sentence. You put the citation. And the active voice, you'll just have the author name and then the year. A lot of times when you're in the introduction section, you can use reporting verbs like investigated, found, reported, etc. So these are good words to use when you're citing original papers. Just a note on self-citation, it's not always bad. This occurs when authors cite their own work, but if you do it too much, it can get you in trouble. Even journals can get in trouble from excessive self-citation of their own journal. Usually no more than 10% is a good guideline. In fact, there's a Nature blog that mentioned 66 journals that were banned from Web of Science for excessive self-citation. So cite your previous work only if your current study is a continuation of the previous study or builds upon it, or if you're trying to build a coherent piece of work in a given field, and your ratio of self-cites to external ones is comparable to that of others in your field. So usually 10% is a good rule of thumb. So how many references are enough for any given paper? Well, basically as many as you need. What does that mean? Well, there's a few factors to consider. You can look at the journal requirements. Some of these shorter manuscripts may have limited references, so you should choose the most important ones for your paper, the most in what you can consider to be impactful for the development of your research ideas. So this all depends. So you know, only in a master's thesis or a PhD dissertation, that's when the number of references doesn't really matter. You can cite all the papers, but if you're trying to publish a scientific paper, try to select the most important papers. So there's reference managers, and these are really good tools. They're all software programs, and they allow constructions of libraries, and some of them are built into Microsoft Word, so you can cite while you're writing your paper. In fact, Endnote has cite while you write as one of the features, and also they contain all the metadata on your paper. You can download those files. For example, when I showed you on PubMed how to download a citation. So a lot of them work with word processors, so you can just plug in your citations by using a plugin on your Microsoft Word app. You can also work offline in your language of choice, and they can select a wide range of citation styles. So there's a lot of citation managing tools out there, and then I'll just circle the ones I'll briefly go over. So there's Mendeley. This also has like a social network quality to it. And then Citavi, Zotero, and then EndNote. So Citavi, this is a freemium tool. It's very similar to Zotero. You can install add-on on your browser. Um, the free version of it allows you to store 100 references, but after that you need to pay. And also provides a search tool that has records of over 4,000 subscription databases, which you have to have access to them through your library. Or if you're working remotely, you can log on to your university account. Then there's Mendeley. This is a really nice program, and uh, it also is a social network. You can create a profile to describe your research interests, and helps you build connections. And there's a nice, easy to understand video on YouTube. So there's a link there, and you'll all have a copy of this presentation. So don't worry if you don't write it down. And it has a free version, but I think there's a limited number of references that you can use. It's also available through your web browser. So, and it has an app as well on your smartphone. So it's actually really good. It can allow you to share and annotate documents together. EndNote also has this function. And you can actually share libraries. So it's really cool. You know, how you can edit a paper on like a Google document. It's like a live document. You can also share a document that way on Mendeley. Then there's Zotero, very similar to the first library, Citavi, that I introduced to everyone. So similar to Zitavi, uh, and or Citavi, sorry. And this also has a uh, you know, basic level reference manager. Has a Safari plugin on Apple and a desktop version, and allows very large storage, 300 megabytes of data, and it's good at saving references directly from the web. So it takes the file for the reference and adds it to its library. And then there's EndNote. EndNote is considered the most premium of all these reference managing tools. I'm not endorsing it, but I started working with this program over 25 years ago when I was writing my master's and PhD dissertations. So they all have their positives and negatives, but this one has the most extensive style guidelines. It integrates with Microsoft Word. It also allows uh, a lot of information on the metadata to be put into your library, and it allows you to work both online and from your desktop. And now it's actually integrated. Here's an introduction to EndNote. Um, you know, Before when I started working with this, many years ago, uh, yeah, I watched it get acquired by Thomson, which has the Science Citation Index database. And then most recently, these are all these versions. They're already up to EndNote 20 already, but it's now integrated with Web of Science. So if your university has access to Web of Science, you can actually access EndNote within it, but it only works when you're online on your university computer. You can also do a free 30-day trial of Endnote 20. There's a website. And if your university has Web of Science, you can use the online version of Endnote. So it works perfectly well. But again, it can't work offline unless you have a subscription. So it allows you to search databases and write your own references. You can keep multiple libraries. That you can organize them by topic or even by which paper you're writing, and you can share those libraries with your co-authors. So it allows you to edit and organize and add PDFs as well, so you can actually store the paper. And then while you're writing, you can insert citations and references, and you can export your bibliography as well, and insert references into the documents. There's a couple of videos here on how to use EndNote. One is for Windows, one's for Mac. So that's available for you to watch on your own. And I just took a scan of my what a library window looks like. And here's one on paleontography, and this is one of the sample libraries that is included. Just shows you what information that's put in the library. You have the author, and the year, and the title, journals, and the reference type. Even websites are in there as well. So that's what your library window looks like. And you can use search tools, like I said, PubMed or even Google Scholar and Web of Science. And you can find citations. This is a Web of Science screenshot of one of my own papers. So there I am, Wickham Jacob. And you can actually download the file. And you can either use it EndNote online, or you can download the citation file and put it onto your computer. So when you export a reference here, you can select like, whoa, what record do I want? Usually, you should select the full record, and that'll give all the metadata that goes along with the uh, the the published paper. So here's my paper on, published in Environmental Microbiome, Dung et al. So I can download that into my computer. So here it is. It's in my reference databases, and here's all the authors, the year published, title, journal, volume number, et cetera, et cetera. And it just goes in there. Um, yeah, it's just a generic line here. And so you can curate your imported reference as soon as it goes in there. You can also create different libraries as well. You can have a master library, or you can have other libraries. Say if you're writing a review paper on a certain subject, you want to organize your reference library, you can do it. You can split it. When you're citing, you can go into EndNote, and you can select which style that you want to use. These are some of the more generic styles. And then here is when I said it's integrated into Microsoft Word. So you have your own tab here, EndNote 20. And then you can go and this cite while you write function, and you can insert a citation. So I just wrote a sentence on my research. Beetle larvae without their symbiotic bacteria died more quickly when exposed to 4 increasing concentrations of entomopathic fungal spores. So I didn't even edit this sentence. But let's say I want to put in the citation. So you can select which style. So you click on Insert Citation here. And then when you're in your library, you can actually remember the difference between active voice and passive voice. So you can you know insert author and then the year in parentheses. Yeah, so that's more of the active voice. And if you just hit the insert button, it's a standard passive voice citation. So make sure you click on the right button here, whether you're using passive or active voice. Um, and once it goes in there, it inserts the citation. You can see Dung et al. 2022, and then the entire reference goes in there. And I just selected the Chicago Manual of Style. So like for a thesis dissertation. This even has like a Web of Science locator in there. Don't know if that's necessary for every journal. So you can also do active voice. So here I just rewrote the sentence a little bit. So, and I use that reporting verb. So, Dung et al. Reported that beetle larvae without their symbiotic bacteria died more quickly when exposed to four increasing concentrations of entomopathic fungal spores. Actually, it's grammatically correct now, and I have a full stop. And again, it's the same Chicago 17th style. And you can also select the Vancouver style as well. So you can just scroll on the style. There's a limited number of styles here. It might not have your target journal, and I'll go how to overcome that difficulty. Some journals will require abbreviations of journals. Others like in italics. I mentioned that there's over 6,000 different styles, and EndNote will help you deal with that. And here's an active voice. So I always wonder how active voice, because you want to mention the authors' names, which in the Harvard Manchester style, you're listing the author's name in the actual citation, but in Vancouver, you're just listing numbers. So in the active voice using the Vancouver style, you're actually mentioning the author's names in the text. So make sure you just follow the style guideline. Actually, there's a lot of authors here. Maybe Dung et al. Would be most correct, but it may just depend on the journal that you're submitting to. So again, active voice is possible whether you're using the Vancouver or the Harvard Manchester style. So what if you're missing the preferred style? For example, Harvard Manchester. So here, the Harvard style, all the names are in capitals. This might not be in accordance with your style. You don't want to go in there and do this by hand. That'll take you an entire day. So if you don't see your style there, you have to go and find and download more styles. Harvard Manchester. This is actually the University of Manchester Library. They developed this style. You can actually click on this link here. This displays author names in the reference list for bibliography in normal case rather than the uppercase as in the Harvard style. So to add it to EndNote, just click on the link above and follow the instructions. And this website also is a complete guide for the styles for all types of citations. So this is actually a very useful website. So you can go to their website, and here you just download the Harvard Manchester style for EndNote, and then just follow the instructions, and then boom, you'll have it in your library. And there's a lot of really nice. I told you that I'm not endorsing EndNote. It's just one of the most popular ones, and but there's also EndNote Online. That's a free one if your library has Web of Science, and then you have Mendeley and Zotero in here as well. So you can download the file. You want to pop it into your EndNote folder and in the styles folder. And that way you'll be able to have it easily. It'll be in the drop down menu when you're in the Cite While You Write section of the Microsoft Word. So just deposit it there. You can also go on to the EndNote's website. This is in Clarivate because I told you Web of Science owns it now. And you can download all 6,000 styles here if you want. So I did that. So I downloaded, it's a 7,451 styles, but it skips the 499 files that are already in your folder. So you can just hit the skip button and then boom, you have every style that you can ever dream of. Okay, let's say you're writing a paper and you want to share your library with co-authors, or if you work in more than one location. Let's say you have a desktop and a laptop computer, and you want to have the contents of your EndNote library available on all your computers. What you can do is you have the syncing feature in EndNote 20, and basically you can synchronize your library, and it syncs it online. And there's some support here and training videos if you're not sure how to do that. But basically, you can sync your library from multiple computers. And you have this nice. Think of it as an iCloud, cloud computing of your reference managing tool. So you can just sync your library. You can also share your library. So you can go in to the menu here, and there's a sharing tool, and you can include email addresses here, and then invite that person to share your library. So if you're collaborating on a paper, you can share your EndNote library. Okay, so yeah, that's in conclusion. When you're writing your papers, you've cited authors, and hopefully you had your articles accepted for publication. After you publish your paper, you can send the paper to the people that you've cited. That's a great way to build your network, and build connections, and also promote your own research. Yeah, and I wanted to thank everyone for their attention. I think I ended this on time. I think we have plenty of time for questions and answers about how to use EndNote, and useful tips on citations, when to cite, how to avoid plagiarism, and how to paraphrase. So thank you for your attention. Let me close the presentation. All right, I think I see a red dot in the Q&A box. Vasundra, are you going to post the questions on the screen? Oh, a lot of great questions. I'll just read the first one. So the first question is an EndNote. Why does the reference information get replaced in certain segments when it is copied from uh, Google Scholar or ResearchGate instead of the journal's original web page? Yeah, actually, a lot of the papers, they actually have um, how to cite this article, and it shows you the citation format. Well, that citation format is only uh, it's the same citation format for that journal. So of course, if you're going to cite this paper in another journal, um, they'll it'll appear differently. So yeah, be careful. I mean, some papers they have like 100 authors, so um, you want to make sure all that data is collected. So when citations are downloaded, um, it'll just appear differently. Um, you know, in your paper. But keep in mind, all the data is there, and yeah, or if you hand typed the citation into your own reference manager, you might not have all this metadata. So when you're citing a paper, it'll just include what you've included as metadata. So that's how information can appear differently. It all depends on the style. And that's actually a huge advantage of having a reference management tool. Is that uh, there is a generally accepted um, uh, form of minimum information that you need for a citation, and that's usually included when you download the citation. But yeah, there's a lot of inconsistencies there. Thanks. Yeah, we just answered that question. So yeah, the keep in mind if there's any mistakes in the citation, you know, yeah, it might not be up to date. Some journals you have a corrigium, which is a correction. You want to make sure you have those up to date as well. Uh, Next question about plagiarism. Which plagiarism tool do I recommend to use? Thank you, Murad, for the question. Well, this iAuthenticate is a very premium tool. Um, if you really want to use that, um, uh, Editage offers services to help check your paper, turn it in, and cross check. They also have free versions that you can use. Because I'm a journal editor, I can easily use iAuthenticate. But if you don't have access to that program, you may want to ask for help with that. I think Editage can do that, not for a very huge fee, if you just wanted to check for plagiarism. But yeah, teachers usually use Turnitin. It's usually for term papers, but you can also use it for scientific papers as well. So I think Editage offers a paper pal. Paper pal also can up to like a 10,000 word manuscript. You can get one check per month. Next question. Okay, yeah, EndNote can be tricky sometimes, and so I appreciate the questions on EndNote. What are the steps to synchronize my EndNote library across multiple devices? Well, it helps if you EndNote online, like Web of Science. So yeah, if King's University has a subscription to Web of Science, get a profile there and keep a copy of your library there, and you can sync uh, with that. If you have your own copy of EndNote, if you have a subscription, you can just click the sync button. Let's say you switch computers, you added a whole bunch of references uh, on your laptop. So make sure you hit the sync button, and then when you log on to your desktop, sync the desktop as well. You know, it's like having your iTunes. You can sync your computer with your iPad or iPod. So the same principle. So just remember to do that. Um, Sharing libraries can be a little difficult because when you have a Note library, it inserts all these field codes in your Microsoft Word document. So if you have collaborators um, that don't have EndNote, you can disable the field codes. And if you're doing like a round of editing with track changes, that can avoid problems with the EndNote library um, updating and changing the document. Okay, what should I do if a journal's abbreviation is missing in a reference? Well, you may have done this, like maybe if you're hand typing the reference into your library. I would just go back and download the reference again. Just search for the paper in PubMed all over again. Just start from the beginning or Google Scholar and just download the reference again and replace the file. And it should insert the full name of the article, and then it'll just abbreviate it, depending on the style. So that would be my advice to do that. How to download EndNote for long-term use? Well, the free trial gives you 30 days, but then they will ask you to buy it. Otherwise, uh, you'll always have to log into Web of Science and use a university computer, or log into your Web of Science account offline your university if you have offline access. So you'll just be restricted to uh, a university subscription and the online version. So yeah, that's how they make all their money. So um, that's you can avoid that to a certain extent. Otherwise, you may have to purchase. The good thing, you don't have to renew your license every year. One license, you're good for life. So many questions. Thank you very much. We have about 5 minutes left. I mean, feel free to type any more questions you may have. I'm just going to go back to the comments here. So, and don't forget to click on the feedback form. There's also, I mentioned PaperPal in my talk. And they have a lot of great AI tools. There's also a plagiarism check tool as well. which you might be able to use in the freeware version of it. Um, and uh, and oh, PDFs. Yeah, this is something that is really nice feature of EndNote. I'm glad to receive another question. So Javed, I give you big thumbs up for so many questions. Um, how do you set up EndNote to automatically update references and attach PDFs? Um, I think you have to manually attach the PDFs. So that if you go into the yeah, I'm not going to share my screen again, but after you download a reference, you got to curate it. There you can put a link to the PDF, and that link will always be there and help you organize your PDFs rather than having your PDFs buried in folders and subfolders all over your computer. That's something I got to do. I got to clean my closet, and I also got to clean up my reference manager in the new year. And this plague is for plagiarism, right, Mored? So, yeah, I'd assume that was is plagiarism. Um, you can use Google Scholar. Yeah, that's a just a general search that you can do for plagiarism, and I think that Turnitin as well. And look at your artificial intelligence, latest AI tools. For example, EndNote, uh, not EndNote, the PaperPal may have some limited functionality for plagiarism. Um, you can also take some, uh, you know, you can copy and paste some paragraphs and just scan online to see how much text overlap there is. Um, Turnitin and cross-reference may have some limited functionality as free tools, but iAuthenticate is, I really have to be an editor for a journal to get that. You can always submit your paper to a journal if you get rejected for text overlap. Ask to get the file, the authenticate file, and most journal editors will be happy to do that for you. So maybe it only becomes a problem if you have a manuscript that's unsubmitted by a journal editor for text overlap. You can say, "Oh, can you please send me the file?" And I think most journal editors will be more than happy to do that for you, and that gives you a very nice detailed screening. And you can see exactly which citations where you have text overlap, and it gives really sentence by sentence, which is the text overlap and which isn't, and that it really helps a lot. Um, and then Javed, thank you again for yet another question. How do I find and manage duplicate references in EndNote? This happens a lot. Let's say you have the reference with omission of key items like the full title of your journal. After you download the title of the full reference, you can go in and just delete the old reference that you have. It's not automatic, but you just got to carefully go through it. And so this also will help you to not cite the using the old citation. So that's a good way to clean up your library. Um, you should also go in the just check your library from time to time and just manually delete your duplicate references. So I'm glad I finished this talk early. There's so many questions. Um, well, why does the EndNote function become disrupted when I add references manually, such as site references? How can I avoid this? So yeah, sometimes EndNote can act a little strange. Um, and I remember with my PhD dissertation, I just got frustrated with EndNote and I just deactivated it. And since I was using the Harvard Manchester style, I just manually added references. Um, uh, Sometimes it's just Word can be glitchy. I would just reboot Microsoft Word, um, and you can also disable a function to update the update the document automatically. It might do that every 5 minutes. That can be disruptive to your writing, so you can just disable that, and then you just update the references only when you're at the end of your day's work. You can just click one button and update the library. And it also helps you to see, like, if you forget to add the active voice references, you might want to go back and re-add those citations, because otherwise, if you try to do that manually, it may overwrite the reference with the wrong voice or the wrong citation format. So yeah, just make sure, kind of curating your writing, and make sure that's up to date. So yeah, you may want to disable some of the automatic functions. All right, I think we hit our 1 hour mark. I wanted to thank everyone for their attention, and thank you even more for all the questions. Uh, Again, you can click on the feedback forms. Also, you can check out PaperPal. I started using it a few months ago, and yeah, I find it to be pretty useful. They have a really good plagiarism detector. They have a good paraphrasing tool as well. It can give you multiple options for paraphrasing if you're a little stumped on how to paraphrase. So thank you again for all your attention, and I hope to see you again in a future webinar. So, and happy end of 2024. So good luck with all your writing, and I hope you found this webinar useful, and I'll see you next time. All right, thank you.